Hi everyone, it's Stephanie and welcome back to another video. One of my favorite types of holiday cards is those that have a geometric kind of modern look to them. So I decided to use a stencil and some masking to create a unique wreath that we can do on 3 different card designs. We're going to use different colors on each one and give all of them a completely different look. So what I have here is the captivating Mandala stencil. I have some masking paper and we're going to use a couple sheets of that. I have the Circle Stacks Dynamics and I have 2 different sizes, which is going to create the wreath on the card. And then I also have 3 panels of white cardstock that are cut to 4.5 inches square. So I'm going to cut out my masking paper so that it's the same size as our cardstock panel. So I'm going to make them each 4.5 inches in square form. And then I'm going to die cut these circles from them. So the largest circle I'm going to cut from the very center. And then the smaller circle can just be cut from the leftover piece that we get from the center. And what we're going to be left with is the outside piece, which is what we need to add to our card. And then the little circle in the center is what's going to define the inside of the wreath. So you just want to very carefully remove the backing from your masking paper, and you're just going to position this right onto the cardstock square. And since I cut both of them to the same size, it's going to fit perfectly on there. Once I have it on there, I'm going to press down really well to make sure that I have that fully adhered. I don't want any of the ink to kind of seep up underneath of that masking paper, so just pushing it down really well just gives you a really nice seal and make sure that you don't have any ink kind of bleeding underneath. Next, we want to add the circle to the center, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it and getting it into the center as best as I can, and then I'm going to take my stencil and position it over top. Now, you don't have to use this specific stencil. I love how this one turns out in the circle form that we've created, but definitely take a look at what you have on hand and try out different designs. There's all kinds of different ways that you could do this with the different stencils that you have on hand. So I'm just making sure to position this in the center. I want the design to be kind of consistent all the way around. So I'm just using the circle in the center to kind of be my guide. I'm positioning that where I want it. And then I'm just using some Post-it tape to adhere down my panel underneath as well as the stencil over top. So for my cards, I'm going to do 3 different designs. And for the first one here, I want to kind of do a traditional look. So I want this to be just a completely green wreath. I did want to add a little bit of interest to it though, so I'm going to use Twisted Citron, and then I'm also going to bring in a little bit of Mowed Lawn, which is just a darker green, and it's just going to add a little bit of contrast on the design. So I'm just going to use an ink blending tool, and I'm going to very carefully go around the wreath design and just add the ink. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between the Twisted Citron and the Mowed Lawn, and then I'm just very carefully blending those together so I have a nice even blend all the way around. Once I'm happy with the ink coverage and I feel like I have all of those little areas filled in with the ink colors that I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and remove the stencil, and then we can remove our mask. And this is by far my favorite part. I love to see the finished result. Right now it actually looks kind of pretty how we have it, but wait till you see when we remove the masking. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean off my stencil because I am going to use it again and I don't want to transfer the ink. And then I'm going to very carefully remove that Post-it tape first, and then I'm going to peel up the outer edge of the stencil. And when I do that, you're going to see we have this perfectly shaped circle design that gives this a really cool modern geometric look. And I actually really like this, so if you wanted to, you could not put the centerpiece in and just create a wreath that has it kind of going right into the center. But for this purpose, I wanted to have the center open for our sentiment. So I'm just removing that centerpiece, and now you can see this really cool wreath we've created just by doing a little bit of masking and using a stencil design. And for my card designs, I decided to make them all square so I could put the wreath right in the center and do the sentiment in the middle of the wreath. But you could definitely do an A2 size card and go a little bit smaller with your wreath design and kind of position it up near the top so you can add the sentiment underneath. So there's lots of different ways that you could use a design like this. So now we're going to move on to the second one, and I'm going to repeat the exact same process. The only thing I'm doing is I'm changing out the colors that we're using for the wreath. So this would not be a video of mine if I didn't do a rainbow version of it. So I'm going to take a bunch of different colors of distress inks now, and I'm going to make my way around the circle with all of the colors in rainbow order. So I'm going to use Pick Raspberry, Abandoned Coral, Mustard Seed for the yellow, Twisted Citron is going to be our green, Peacock Feathers will be our blue/aqua, and then we're going to use Wilted Violet to finish it off with some purple. This is pretty much my go-to color combination anytime I do a rainbow design with distress inks. I love how all of these colors look together, and I just think it really adds a fun, bright look to a card. So I'm just going back and forth with all of the blending tools and making sure I have a nice even blend. And then once again, the best part is removing the mask and seeing this wreath that we've created. And when I started these cards, I already knew kind of the theme I wanted to do for each of the designs. So for the first one, that's going to be a traditional one that is going to be a Christmas card. The second one here with the rainbow is going to be a New Year's card, so I thought the rainbow was kind of fun. And for this last one here, I'm going to just use blues and purples and create kind of a winter design. I'm going to add some snowflakes at the end here, and then I'm going to just use a winter sentiment for a winter card. So for this one here, I'm using peacock feathers and wilted violet, and I'm just going in with each of the two colors and kind of filling the space, and then I'm going back in with my blending tools to really blend those together to give it a nice seamless look. And then once I have all of the inking done, we're once again going to remove our masking and reveal our final wreath. I love how simply changing out a few of the colors completely gives this a different look, even though we have pretty much the same design on all of the cards. And then of course we are going to change up the sentiments on each one. So here's a quick look at all three designs together. We have the winter one there in the front, we have the rainbow wreath in the center, and then we have the traditional green wreath at the end. So now that we have all the wreaths done, we can go ahead and put the cards together. So for this first wreath here, I want this to be a traditional Christmas card. So I'm going to use the hand-lettered Christmas first and stamp the word joy in the center. And then I'm going to use the Filled with Joy stamp set to stamp a secondary sentiment that we can add underneath. I'm stamping this on black cardstock with Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink, and then I'm adding white embossing powder so I can heat set that. Staying with the traditional Christmas look, I'm going to use a red card base for this one, so this is electric red cardstock, and then I'm going to just trim down this strip and I'm going to add it underneath of the stamped word joy. So I have it on there, I just used some liquid glue and trimmed it down to fit, and then I added the panel onto my card base. Each of the wreath designs are going to have some jewels or sequins added. So for this one here, I decided to use Doodlebug enamel dots. These are sparkly red, and I'm going to add these in groups of 3 to look like berries on my wreath. There is 3 different shades of red in these enamel dots, so I'm using the darkest color as well as the lightest color just to change up the different reds that we have around the wreath. I'm using tweezers to quickly pick these up, and then I'm just going to go around the wreath and add these in groups of 3 until I have it all the way back around to the sentiment strip. I love the dimension that these add, and I love that little bit of sparkle that they have in them, and I just think it really added to the traditional look I was going for in this holiday wreath. Once I have those on there, we have finished this design, and I love the final result. I just think it's so pretty, and now we can move on to the next one. So this is our New Year's version that uses hand-lettered holiday, and then I'm going to jump to the final one, which is going to use snow globe sentiments, and I'm stamping Let It Snow 3 times. I just moved the panel in my MISTI so that I didn't have to move the stamp, and I stamped that 3 times to kind of play on the song. For the New Year's Eve card, I decided to put this one onto a Limelight card base. I love the bright green of this cardstock, and I love to use it anytime I use a rainbow pattern. And then for the winter one here, I'm going to put this onto blue raspberry cardstock since it goes so nicely with the peacock feathers distress ink. Once I have both of these on their card bases, I can go ahead and dress these ones up. So for the New Year's one, I'm going to use clear sequins and I'm going to add them to the card front. And for this one, I didn't stay contained in the wreath. I decided to kind of add some to the wreath as well as in the center area. I like the look of kind of having them all over, and I just love the sparkle that these add to the card. I'm going to use Stardust Stickles in the center of all of these sequins, which is just a glitter glue that adds a lot of shine once it dries. I just love the final look of that on the clear sequins. Once I have that done, this card is complete, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the winter card. So for this one here, I have a few of these snowflake sequins. I've had these for quite some time and thought they would look really cute on the wreath design. At first I was going to kind of have them scattered, but I really liked the look of having them right in the center of the wreath, so I just kind of positioned them around there. I added a clear sequin to the center of those with silver stickles, and then I added a few clear droplets kind of scattered around the design as well. I love clear droplets on like a snow or a card that has rain. I just think they look really cool and almost mimic the look of water. Okay, so now we have 3 different cards that we've created with the same geometric modern wreath design, but we changed up the colors, which completely changed the look of our cards. So we have our winter version that says let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. We have our New Year's version, which has the fun rainbow wreath with the cheers to the New Year sentiment in the center. And then we have our traditional Christmas card, which says joy to the world and has those fun sparkly berries added on the top. I hope today's video gave you some ideas on ways that you can create some modern geometric looking wreaths just by simply using some stencils and some masking. All of the supplies I've used in today's video are linked in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Thanks for watching.